designer for Wulong Toys, and in this course we're going to be going over how to do 3D modeling in SketchUp specifically for action figure design and 3D printing. I'd like to just get a chance to get to know you guys a little bit, and I'd like to know why you are interested in taking this class and what you hope to get out of it. Andrew, let's go ahead and start with you. Okay, no Andrew. All right, how about you, Chris? Nothing from Chris. Joey?
Me? Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. I'm a mechanical engineer myself, and I grew up on Transformers. It sort of got me into engineering. So always had a fascination to sort of design, do the whole toy design world. And I think it's a great way to sort of bridge all my hobbies, gaps, expertise, and all that, just for the fun, off to the side.
Very cool. All right, and how about you, Ruben?
I missed the question altogether.
Why are you interested in taking this course, and what do you hope to get out of it?
Well, I have some figures that I like to customize, and the pieces aren't out there. So I figured if I could make it myself, it would cut out the middleman.
Sure, sure. And you're going to get it exactly how you want it, right?
Yeah.
Andrew, you ready? We can't hear you. I can see you. I can't. I can tell your lips are moving. All right, we can give you a minute. Chris, are you ready? Okay. All right. Well, I guess Chris says in the chat that he's plugging his mic in, so we'll give him another couple minutes. While he's doing that, let me just show you a little bit of, I guess, what's in store. This here is the test print of the figure that we're going to be designing in class. You can see he's got ball-jointed head, ball-jointed shoulders and elbows, hips. He's got a hinge for the knee. Could have done ball joint, but I wanted to, teach you how to make these different kinds of joints. And then on the back, I don't know if you can see, he's actually got a mushroom peg for the waist swivel. Again, I could have done a ball joint, but this guy's for teaching purposes. I actually printed out two of this guy, one in white and then one in red. And you can see the red one, I gave him some extra accessories. He's got a little Spartan helmet and a sword and a shield. And the sword and shield will actually combine together and peg into the hole in his back, so for for some storage. So those are what you're going to be designing, not necessarily the sword and shield, but you'll make better things. You'll make your own things, and you'll make this your own. So this little figure is going to be yours at the end of the class. The model will be yours to do with what you wish, to customize it, to improve upon it, to make it your own, and to sell it in your own Shapeways shop. Also, I wanted to show you some of the higher range of stuff. So this guy here is my my tailgate figure that I designed a while ago. It's been 3D printed in the white, strong, and flexible, and then painted. And then I just got this prototype a couple of days ago. This one here is not painted at all. In fact, it's using the white, strong, and flexible, the blue, strong, and flexible, the black, strong, and flexible, the alamide, and translucent, so that the light piping works. The only paint, if you can call it that, is I used a blue marker over his optics. And this one here has double jointed elbows, double jointed knees, shoulders, double joints at the neck, toes, a lot more articulation than this initial one. And Oh, I don't know how well you can see it, but he's also got articulated hands, wrists, and thumbs. So just giving you an idea of what you can do, once you've learned the tools and your imagination can run wild.
I'm not sure if my microphone's working.
Hey, I hear you.
Is it too loud? Should I turn it down?
But I can hear you.
Alrighty. Hello.
Hey. So, why are you interested in this class, and what do you hope to get out of it?
In the last, I think year and a half or so, I've gotten, tremendously interested in 3D printing as a medium for toy makers, and the idea of getting a better idea of how to actually do it is very enticing. That, and I've never done 3D modeling, and I think that's a big hole in my personal skill set. So, a couple of different fronts of why I'm excited about this.
Cool. Very cool. All right. I still can't hear you, Andrew. I see your mouth moving. All right. Well, we can either come back to you, or I guess we can move on. We will all assume that you are very excited about this class, that you are interested in action figures and possibly Transformers, and that you wish to make your own and your own accessories. Is that about fair? Okay, good. All right. I'm now going to go ahead and switch over to screen share, and you should all see yourselves. And now SketchUp. Okay, so before we get too far into it, did everyone get a chance to look at the Lesson 0 video and load up all of your plugins and get everything set up?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I hear you.
There we go. We set on the wrong mic. All right.
Switch back to you if you'd like, and we can have you answer the question.
Yeah, so I'm a toy inventor, so I pitch to Hasbro and Spin Master and stuff. So I do a lot of prototypes. I cut and paste toys, but I've never really got into 3D printing, and I've always been interested in it. And I think I have a good sense of 3D space, but digital 3D design is just brand new to me. So I want to learn it and start to use it for pitching.
Very cool. Very cool. And you'll be able to supply them with prototypes as well.
Yeah.
I have a very large Nerf collection.
Yeah. My basement's a bit of a mess right now because I didn't realize we'd be doing video, but we'll probably tidy it up.
If I switch back to me, you can see what I got on my wall.
Nice. Pegboard's the way to go.
Yep.
Don't feel bad about the camera. I don't actually know where my webcam is.
Which is funny because you're a video guy.
I know. I got all these I got these fancier cameras, and a couple of years ago I was trying to help someone do a streaming thing, and I was like, yeah, I'll just plug my camera in. It turns out that those cameras don't work over USB for streaming, so I'd have to go get a TriCaster. And I was like, that's a lot to help with this little event.
That's all right.
One cool thing, I just got my invite for Hasbro's Toy Fair booth.
Oh, nice.
There today, so I get to go to see that and on Sunday the 15th.
New York Toy Fair?
Yeah.
Oh, jealous.
Yeah. I'm hoping they show a big Devastator.
And maybe I'll meet you.
You going?
I'm trying to. I'm looking to get myself a ticket.
Awesome.
Apparently I qualify because I'm a quote-unquote toy designer.
Yeah. Well, and if you want to, I'll send you a link, or I'll send you an email, and you can send it to someone, and they want people to go, right? The only shitty thing is Hasbro's booth is in another building. When I first went to Toy Fair, I was all excited. I was like, okay, I got in there. I was like, where's Hasbro's booth? And it's in another building. It's invite only.
Of course. And hopefully it doesn't get snowed out.
Yeah.
Like it has in years past. All right. So before I jump into SketchUp, did anybody have any issues getting their copies of SketchUp loaded up with all of the plugins?
No, I'm good.
That kind of thing.
All good here.
Cool.
I just got it working decently. Don't worry about me. I'll get the plugins working as we talk.
Okay, cool. Fair enough. All right, then let's jump into it.
Quick question.
Sure.
Should I have SketchUp running in the background? as we're
It's not
going?
necessary. I mean, if you want to work alongside me, you're more than welcome to. Like if you have the monitor space to do that, or double monitors, that's cool.
Yeah, I don't. All
Yeah, I
right.
don't at the
And
moment.
I have a touchpad, which is kind of squirrely, so.
Yeah, so you're fine just watching. I am recording this event, so as soon as we wrap it up here, I'll post the link into our shared folders so you guys can take another look at it on your own.
Awesome.
Anything you want to go over. And of course, I'm always available over chat if you have questions or you're running into issues, like when you're trying to do the homework. And there will be homework. So, all right, let's go ahead and get started. Sketch
All
up.
right.
And I'm going to go ahead and start with me. These are probably the tools that I use most often. There's a bunch of them, like I said in the video. There's a lot of them available, but not all of them are going to be useful for what it is that we want to do. Like I said, SketchUp is primarily geared towards architects. That's what it was originally designed for. We're kind of tweaking it. All right, so the arrow is your select tool. That's going to be kind of your go-to for just about everything, and it's space bar. I rarely actually use these. I just use the hotkeys for them. As you get more familiar with SketchUp, you'll probably find that you use the keyboard more and more, and actually these guys less and less, which is that'll make you faster.
You're kind of cutting out a bit.
Right?
You're cutting out a little bit. I don't know if it's just me or.
All right. Maybe I'm speaking too fast and I should slow down.
No. It's just,
Quality is cutting out.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going up and down real quick.
It sounds like lag. It might be because you're running the program at the same time. I don't know.
I know what it is. Just a second. I'm an idiot. The issue is that I have a headset on my head, but it was not plugged in, which is brilliant. Is that any better?
Yeah, that's better.
That's better, yeah.
It's great.
Excellent. Okay, so it was just being picked up by the crappy little mic on my laptop, and so I had my headset on, and the other end was just dangling on the floor. So, all right, we'll get started now. Along the top here are your drawing tools. This section right here is your drawing tools, and we're going to go ahead and start with line tool, which is one you're going to be using a lot. It basically works how you would expect a polygonal line to work. You can draw stuff out, and it is for the most part going to try to keep everything on the same plane so that when you connect them, it'll oh, that totally made me a liar. For the most part, it tries to, you can see how it's changing colors. That means that it's locking the line to a specific axis point. Your axes are the blue, the green, and the red. Blue is more or less Y. Red is going to be your x-axis, and green is going to be Z, or in Chris's case, Z.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm Canadian too, so.
Ah, well then, Z for the both of you. Z all around. When we want to, we don't have to guess which one it's going to try and line it up. It automatically, you can see, kind of snaps to it. However, if we want to say, I want to make this guy exactly the same length as this one, I can actually use the up, down, left, and right keys. The left key is going to lock it to your green axis. Red is going to, right for red. Right is going to lock it to your red axis, and up and down the blue axis. So if I hold down, if I tap left, it locks it to that one, and I can line it up at this point, and now they're equidistant, and I can finish it off. So that's basically all there is to it, and then if I want, I can draw more stuff in here. You can see I made the shape, and it's... Next one is the pencil tool, and much like in Photoshop, I mean, if you're familiar with the tools there, it's a similar kind of thing. And unless you have some fancy tools, this is basically like drawing with the bars open, which is not a fun experience. I think I've used this probably once in the entire time that I've ever had SketchUp. because for the most part, you're not going to be freehanding stuff as you're trying to make 3D objects. The rectangle tool, or R, it works you can work it a couple of different ways. You click one time, and it sets one corner, and then you drag your mouse around, and then you click a second time, and it finishes off the shape. If you take a look, get rid of it again. You take a look in the lower right-hand corner, this section right here where it says dimensions. Click one time, and you see how the numbers are changing. We can actually line it up to be exactly the right, mathematical size that we want our shape to be, which is very good if you're going to be making accessories that have to interact with existing toys. So let's say that I want this to be, 400 by 400. I can either try to eyeball it, get as close as I can, or if I click, and then before I touch anything else, before I switch tools or try drawing anything else, I type 400, 400. You can see it filled it in that dimensions box, and hit enter, and it resizes my square to meet those dimensions. Without touching anything else, I'm not locked into it until I switch tools or try to draw something else. So I can now make it to 50 by 500. You see it rearranged it. 400 by 600. So you have that freedom to be able to, lock it into where it's precisely where it is that you want it to go. And a lot of these tools are going to give you that option. All right, so get rid of that guy. This one here, I've never really used. It's actually a new one for 2015. I think it's basically a way to put your rectangles, specifically on a certain angle. But as you see, it's very kind of, I don't know, I prefer to just draw them out or rotate them myself. The circle tool, there's my axes. You'll notice I keep going, this turns yellow. That's your origin point. I'll probably bring it up a couple of times. That's just where all of your different axes collide. And typically in my models, I always try to keep the red horizontal and the green going front and back. Our circle tool, when you click one time and then you start dragging out, and you'll notice in the lower right, that's radius, not diameter. So if you want to have like a 5mm handle, you would input 2.5. So 2.5, enter, there it is. In fact, if I switch to my tape measure tool, which is T, you can see it made it 5mm. Now that I've switched, though, if I were to hit 3 and enter, nothing happens because I've switched tools. I'm no longer in the circle tool. Circle, let's say we want it 3mm, hit 1.5 mil, etc. It's pretty easy to get the hang of. One thing I should note is, by default, this tool has 24 sides to your circle, because it's not a true circle. It's actually a number of line segments that look like a circle. And by default, it has 24 sides. Before I start drawing anything, I can actually change that. Let's say I hit 6, enter, and now when I start drawing it out, you can see it's a 6-sided circle. And it's a circle as opposed to a hexagon, because if I were to pull it up, the lines are all soft and smoothed out. Now, as far as printing is concerned, 3D printing, it's still going to have the hard edge, regardless of whether or not it looks softened. So you're probably not going to be doing that a whole lot, and I recommend just sticking with the either the default or higher. A lot of times I tend to go with 36, just so that we get a smoother looking circle. You'll also notice that when I drag it out, I like to stick to a given axis. SketchUp will let you draw it out like this, and it'll complete it. However, you'll notice that the the end point of this little corner is off axis. And that's going to make things a little bit more difficult for you later on when you try to move things around or you try to resize things. So it's always better to be in the habit, be in the practice of always just locking it to a given axis if you have that opportunity, if you have the chance to do that. This one here is your polygon tool. This is what you would use to make hexagons and stuff. Again, you can see sides. I can make them 5-sided if I want. I can do 8-sided, octagon. And it works just the same way as the circle tool. You type in your radius. Hit enter, and now when I hit push pull, you can see it's got those hard edges. This would be useful if you were doing, I guess, like animation models or architecture models, and there was a difference to you between having a hard edge and a soft edge. But for our purposes and for 3D printing, it doesn't matter. It'll always print out with that hard edge, regardless of whether or not you soften it in the program. These are your your arc tools. They give you 4 different methods to make your arcs. If I draw out a rectangle there, and I pick this method, I set one point, I'll set another point, and then there it draws an arc. This method, instead of setting your center point, you set one endpoint and another endpoint, and then you control the amount of bulge that the arc has. And you'll notice in the lower right that changes, and so I can manually type that in if I want. I can say I want to have a 3 mil bulge, and there you go. This one kind of works like halfway between the two of them. You can see how it tries to make it a full circle. And it's like, okay, I'm going to make it a circle going through those 2 points that you clicked. And this one they call the pie. So it kind of works that way, the same as the first one, except this one will create whole shapes as opposed to just the line. If I draw out another rectangle real quick and then use my tape measure tool, I can drag out what we call construction lines. Let's say I want it to be 5 millimeters away from that edge. I just type in 5, enter. Another one from here, 5, enter. And now go back to this guy. I like the bulge one better. On that point, click on that point. You'll notice it looks kind of, I don't know if you can see it on your screen, but it's kind of a magenta color right now, the line. That means that it is tangent to the edges of that rectangle. It kind of snaps into that spot. If I want, I can now erase those edges, and now I've got a nice rounded corner. You can see. All right. One other thing about the tape measure and these construction lines is you can drag them out either from any edge, any line that you have in your model, or from your axes. And you can see that you can use your constrainment keys, your left, right, up and down, to lock them to a given one also. So here I hit up, it's locked to the up and down. I hit left, and it's locked to the green. As well as manually inputting, I want it to be this far. All right, let's go ahead and draw out a couple of shapes real quick. I'll just do some boxes. So R. There's one. There's one. There's another one. This guy here is your move tool. Let's you can do a couple of neat things. If I click, like right now I don't have anything selected. You can see when I mouse over it, it just says the face. And I try to move it, it grabs the whole thing. If these two guys happen, oh, and I should also note, now when I hover over just the end point, it'll move just that bit around. hit escape to break out of that. If I hover over the line turns blue. I will move just that portion. If I switch back to my select space, click 2 times, and now I've got the face and its lines. And I can move that around. If I grab the end point while everything is selected, then it moves relative to that end point, and I can then snap it to other objects. Of course, now if I try to move it, you can see that it keeps the portion that's selected intact, but then distorts everything else around it that's attached. Okay. Let me make a couple more, and then we'll return to our move tool. This right here is your push-pull tool, or P. This is what's going to let you take something that's completely flat and drag it up. It will also let you, as the name implies, shrink stuff back down. So if I were to take my rectangle again, draw something out here, and then push-pull, I can pull out another, I can extrude another portion of it, or drag one out here and push it in. Now I made a little concave section. All right. Now let's say I've got this. Oh, I should talk about selecting real quick. If I click 1 time, I grab just the face. Okay. If I click 2 times, I get the face and its lines. If I click 3 times, I get the entire object that isn't touching anything else. All right, so now there's also a couple other ways to select real quick. I click and drag in the left-hand side, to the left of the object. You can see I have a solid box. If I let go here, and it's halfway between that middle one, you can see it selects only what happens to be inside of that box and nothing else. For example, these lines here were not contained within that box, so they weren't selected. However, that face and its lines were. Inversely, if I click and drag from the right of the objects, you can see now it's a dotted line. And when I let go, it's going to grab whatever was inside that box plus whatever was happened to be portion of it was inside the box. So it grabbed these lines and those faces because part of them was inside the box, but it did not grab that face or its lines because it was outside of the box. Okay, moving on. Now we're going to go back to our move tool, or M. Like we showed before, if I grab just the face of it, it'll distort it. I grab all of it. Okay, move that around. We can move things very precisely. So if I grab this, I hit move. I grab it by this corner here. You'll notice that in the lower right-hand side it says length, and that's how far I'm moving it. I can constrain it just like the other stuff. So here it's constrained on the green, constrained on the red, and then blue. Constrain it to the red. I have that red dotted line that kind of follows it, kind of reminding me that I'm constrained to that axis. I can actually type in 10, hit enter, and it moved it precisely 10 millimeters. And say move it back 20 mil. Right, it puts it exactly where you want it. There's a way to precisely move things as well as create things. If you tap the control button while you're in the move tool, you'll see that I have a little plus that shows up next to my cursor. Now when I go to move something, it creates a copy of it. And just like the other way, I can tell it precisely how far I want it to move away from whatever it is I'm doing. So let's say that, real quick, I'm going to draw out a box, and my box is going to be 100, 100, and it's going by millimeters because I have mine set to millimeters as the default. There's a 100 by 100 millimeter box. I'm going to go to my push-pull. I click it one time, start pulling up, and again I'm going to type 100. Now I have a cube that's 100 on each side. I select the whole thing, move tool, control for copy, constrain to the red. I can lock it, it can snap to there, or in this case I want it to move 200 mil, but it's equidistant. Like let's say that I want to start making like a checkerboard. Now, before I hit anything else, before I switch tools or do anything else, let's say that I need 5 of these to go across. Well, I could click, hit Control again, drag it out, hit 200, and do that. Or hit Control, drag it out, hit 200. Now, before I hit anything else, I hit asterisk, and then 4, because I want to put all 5 of them, so 4 copies, and hit Enter. And now I've got 5 of them. They're all going to be moved the exact same distance apart from each other. But let's say that I know that I need to fit 7 of them into a given space, but I don't know how far they need to be. They just need to fit equally. Well, Sketchup has you covered there too. So let's see. Grab this, move it, copy it, and let's say that I know that it has to reach here, and I need 7 of them total across. Well, I hit /, or like for divide if you have a number key, and then I need 7 total, so that's 6 copied. To Enter, and SketchUp filled in the middle, and it figured out whatever the distance needed to be in order to make them all equal, which happens to be about 90 mil. Now, just because I happen to have millimeters as my default, that doesn't mean that I'm locked into it. Let's say that, like, I've got millimeters as my default here, but I need this thing to be 2 inches by 2 inches. So I hit 2, and then, you know what, let's see if I can get rid of that. There we go, sorry about that. Alright. 2 in the double quotes for inches, comma, 2, double quote. And now it figured out 2 inches is 50.8 mils. You can also go, okay, you know what? I know that this needs to be done in centimeters, so again, I can type in 5 cm, 4 cm, it'll figure it out. I do everything in millimeters, so I don't really mess with that a whole lot, but I figured you should know about it. Let's go back to having our 100 box. And we're going to pull it over 100. And we're going to say times 4. We're going to grab all of these guys, and I'm going to hit move. And I'm going to go from this point, hit control, and I'm going to then let it lock to that point. And then you notice that the plus went away. Each time that you want to continue copying something, you have to keep hitting control. So I'll hit control again, hit control again. And you can see it becomes pretty easy to do something like that. Okay. This guy here is your rotate tool, and if we have our box, if we don't have anything selected at all, it's going to rotate just that face. So the first click sets the center of whatever it is that's rotating. The second click, let's say right here, the second click is basically like your handle, what you're going to be moving. And then your third click is how much it's rotating. So here, because I happen to click on that corner, you can see what highlighted. So it's going to be rotating those 3 points. If I'm in here somewhere and I click it, you can see it rotates just that face. If I select the whole thing and hit Q for rotate, now when I do it, you can see it rotates the whole thing around that point. Now, it naturally will adhere to whatever plane that you put it up against. But let's say you wanted to rotate on here, but it kind of keeps jumping around. What you can do is let's say we want to rotate it on the blue axis. We mouse over blue, we hold down Shift, and now wherever we move it, it's going to be locked. As long as I'm holding down Shift, it's locked into that axis. And then I can do this, to move it around. Also, if I'm right here, if I click, but I don't let up on my mouse, and I start dragging it around, you can see I can tell it specifically, okay, this is how I want you to orient, what axis I want you to go around. And this is super useful if you're going to be rotating something around a point or around a line that does not adhere to any of the given axis lines. All right. Now let's get into this one. This one, it's the Follow Me tool. You're probably not going to be using it a whole lot. Oh, before I forget, one more thing about this rotation tool. You don't have to actually click on the object. You could actually click out here somewhere if you wanted. So you're just setting wherever it is that the object is going to rotate around, whether it's on the object itself or it's outside of it. Also, another point is it works a lot like the Move tool does. So if I wanted to, I could click out here, and then click here, and if I hit Control, see that little plus shows back up again? And see, now I've got a copy rotated around that point. In fact, I can now, just like with the Move tool, before I hit anything else, I can do asterisk 12, and you see it created 12 copies going around that arc. Maybe this will be useful to you, maybe not. But I'm presenting the tools, and it's up to you to figure out what to do with them. All right, now let's take a look at this this Follow Me tool. This one, it's a little bit weird, and you're probably only going to be using it to make spheres, but who knows? Maybe you're into crown molding. So let's say we've got a nice big rectangle here. I am going to draw another one going, come on, go up. There we go. Oh, I'm sorry, I should have mentioned this first, how we navigate, how we move around. I didn't mention it at all, I'm just doing it. On my mouse, I use the scroll wheel. The scroll goes in and out. If I push down on the scroll wheel, it switches to my orbit tool, and it will orbit around whatever it is I'm looking at. And if I hold down Shift and then push in on the scroll wheel, it changes to pan. There we go. That's how you move around in SketchUp. And in fact, I can be orbiting, hold down Shift, switches to pan, let go of Shift, back to orbiting. So, okay. I'm going to switch to my line tool. I am going to, you know what? I'm going to make it an arc. I'll go for an arc from here to here. Let's open there. Line tool, bring it up, over, up again, and back down. So I've got this shape. I'll get rid of this stuff. And this Follow Me tool kind of works a lot like the Push-Pull tool. So if I click on this guy, and then I click on this, you can see how it kind of pulls it out, just like the Push-Pull would. But as I go around this corner, it kind of follows that corner around. So like I said, if you're into crown molding, this could be very useful for you. But it's also how we make spheres, and I'll show you that in a second. So I'll go to my circle tool. SketchUp doesn't actually have any native primitive shapes. You kind of have to create them all yourself. So for making our circle, we're going to go ahead and draw out a big circle. Doesn't matter what size, just as long as it's bigger than what we want our end finish circle to be. And then going to maneuver so that I can, when I hold up my circle, it turns to green. So now it's on the green axis as opposed to the blue one. And I hold down Shift so it locks to that. And again for my origin. And now I'm going to set my my radius. I'm going to say 50, but I have a 100 mil diameter circle. That circle really huge, didn't I? All right, I'm now going to click one time on the big circle, click on the follow me, and then click on the little one. And if I select this guy and move him out of the way, get rid of that, you can see I made a sphere. I don't know why that requires you to do it that way, but that's how you make spheres in SketchUp. So, let me move this guy back over. And obviously we're going to be doing that when we get into making our figure, doing some ball joints. So there's the sphere, that's the follow me tool. The next one is your scale. So by scaling things, I have a bunch of endpoints, or handles rather, that I can pull from. If I pull from one of the ones that's in the middle of this box that it creates, it's going to stretch it, as you can see, just along that direction, not uniformly. However, if I, let me see if I can. If I grab one of these corners, then it's going to keep it uniform. And you can see in the lower right-hand corner it says scale. So whatever it's at when it starts out is 1. And then anything as you go bigger, it's going to be 1 point something. So imagine if you wanted this to be twice the size as it is now, let's say because it's 100 mil across diameter, if we want it to be 200 mil, we would type in 2, enter. Conversely, if we wanted it to be smaller, we would, like say, half the size. At 50 mil, we would hit 0.5. All right, so there's the scale tool. However, I should point out also that it depends on what you have selected. It happens to be all one part. But let's say that I've got a box. So I'll draw out a box. I hit my scale tool. I click here. You can see it didn't grab the whole thing. It just grabbed just that face because that's what was selected. So again, you can see how it'll scale just that face. And again, holding onto the corner. Now, if we happen to grab either the corner or one of these midpoints, and we hold down the control button while we do it, you can see it does it on both sides. And instead of going from pulling it away from the opposite corner or the opposite side, it reflects it from the middle. And same thing on the corners. I hold down control, and in fact you can even see when I just mouse over it, the red handles that show up are the opposing corners, but when I hit control, that switches it from the center. Alright, so I wanted to point that out before we got too far along. And likewise, if I have everything selected and I hit ask for scale, then we have what we're used to. In addition to resizing your parts, we're probably going to be using scale a lot, especially when we go to start intersecting things, in particular rounded things. SketchUp has a tendency to barf big time whenever you try to intersect two rounded things against each other at a very small scale. And so a lot of times we'll just toss everything in a group, select everything, scale it up to say, by 100, factor of 100. Shift Z to view everything, do whatever it is we need to do, and then we'll scale it back down again, 0.1. Shift Z to zoom back in. Shift Z will take whatever is visible in your model and fill the screen with it. It's a good way to find yourself when you get lost or when you scale things up or down by large amounts. All right, so we talked a little bit about the tape measure tool, but in addition to just drawing out construction lines and measuring how far it is from here to here, it can also change the size of your entire model in one go. So like right now, if I go from here to here, it says it's 104.2 mil. Enter, or I click. Before I do anything else, if I type in 50 and hit enter, you can see, do you want to resize the model? If I say yes, well, now it's resized my entire model, and now I've just defined that from that point to that point equals 50. So that could be a good way if you decide that you like working large, and then you want to shrink it back down before it's time to export your file for printing. These guys here, in particular, this one with the 3 and this one with the A1, are primarily for showing off your models, to show off like basically the dimensions of things. So like the 3 one here, if I click 1 time, 2 times, and then the 3rd time out here, you can see it puts little markers of exactly what your dimensions are. Again, not going to be useful for creating your 3D models or for getting them 3D printed, but it might be useful for sharing your geometry with, say, a third party or something, and you want to show them precisely, okay, this is a 5mm port, or this is whatever. This one here, however, it does 2 things. One, it will, you can see it by default gives you the exact coordinates of that point that you clicked on as they relate to this origin point. If I click a second time, I can now either leave it that, or I can type in here's a point. And in fact, you can't use your keyboard commands because they're typing. There, and there's my little message. Again, probably not something you'll be using a lot unless you're showing off the renders. This guy here is your protractor. It works almost exactly the same way as your tape measure tool does. Its whole point is for drawing construction lines. However, this allows you to make construction lines on angles, precise angles that you want to line stuff up with. This guy here, this is a funny one, the axis tool. Let's say that I've got this guy, and I've got a copy of him. So move, control. And this copy happens to be angled a little bit that way, angled a bit that way, and then is a group. Now, I go inside of this group, and I want to continue working along it. Let's say I want to draw a box in here. I go to my L. If I try to constrain it to the red, well, that doesn't work for me, does it? Or I constrain it to the blue. So that doesn't work out for me because this is the direction that my axis lines are going. So that's when I would use this tool here. So click, let's say right in this corner here. I want my red to follow that line. I want my blue, or rather my green, to follow that line. And now it has said, all right, that's the direction your axis lines are going. So now when I click back to my line tool, and I constrain along red, it's the direction I want it to be going when it constrains. Blue, red, there, and there we go, and I can pull it out. Now it's independent. Its axis is independent from what these guys are doing. All right, so that's what that's for. This guy here is your 3D text. You have a couple of options in terms of font and whether or not it's going to be bold, if that font allows it, extruded or not extruded. I'll just hit place, and you can see based on those things that I inputted in, this is how much it extruded it, how tall it made the letters. And by default, it made it a component so that I could reuse it later if I wanted to for whatever reason. In fact, that's how I use this tool in order to make the text in my Belonging Toys logo. If I hit explode, now it's all just raw, parts, and I can manipulate it however I want. So let's push to push pull. See, I can do this stuff. Or even moving things around. So just because the text tool puts it a certain way doesn't mean that you're locked into making the letters that way. All right, so let's say that on this guy here, I'm going to, I skipped over that one, didn't I? That is your offset. In fact, we're going to use it right now. The offset, okay, I'm going to make sure I don't have anything selected. Offset, click on here, you can see it selects that face or that one. I click in here, and it's going to draw me, it's not going to move the lines, it's going to create a new set of lines offset from the outside dimensions of whatever face I click inside of. So let's say I'm going to have it offset here, we'll say 15. 15, enter. I'm going to push pull. Actually, I'm going to make sure nothing gets selected, and then I'm going to push pull. There we go, so now I've got a little inset there. You know what, I'm going to push a little bit further. And then, let's say I do something like this. And close that up. Now, if I want to work inside of here, that's going to be really kind of a pain to have to try to navigate in here and then, where am I? Keep jumping out of it. It's really going to be a pain to try to work with. That's where these guys come in handy. So let's say I'll click on this guy, which is the section plane, and I will click on this face. And you see basically it creates an invisible force field here, and whatever is behind that is visible, and whatever is in front of it is gone. Or I guess the other way around, visible versus gone. I can actually select that. You can see it turns blue. I can move it. Same way I can move anything. I'm going to lock it to the green, and you can see how it affects the parts. So now, get back to here, working inside here becomes very easy, and I don't have to worry about a bunch of excess model getting in my way. I can also click on it and hit delete, and it goes away. All right. So the ones down this side, we're not going to touch on a lot of them just yet. These here are your basic camera views. They're pretty self-explanatory. If you think of the house as your model, that's your isometric view, top, front, right, back, and left. And it can be a great way to just quickly okay, I need to draw something on the top of here. I could either try to line it up and get it flat, or I could just hit the top of the house. And I can pan around all right. And you can actually see right here, it tells you which view you're in if you happen to be locked into one. I say locked, it's not really locked. I can still move it around. These here are your topography tools. We're not going to be getting into them during the course of this during the course of this class. These are some pretty advanced techniques, so we'll walk before we run, but we will touch them in the advanced course. These here are your Fredo tools, which I had you install. They do some pretty nifty things that the regular scale can't do. Just to use as an example, our sphere here, if I hit Fredo scale, you can see I get some slightly different looking boxes, and for the most part they're going to work the way you expect them to. Although there are some, this one pretty much exists so that you don't have to have the other one, but here's where it gets kind of funky. So now if I drag this guy around, you can see it's going to like taper it around a point. If I hit control again, it's from the center, just like with the other scale. You can see I got this weird egg shape now. Here we can shear. And if you're familiar with Photoshop, you're probably used to a lot of the different transform things that you can do in Photoshop in terms of shearing things and distorting them. This pretty much gives you that kind of freedom, but in a 3D format. I encourage you to, play around with these, just see if you can figure out what all they do and if it's something that would be useful for you. And it's a great way to make an easy pill. That's actually not going to show up at all on our sphere, so let me draw out a box. Go with R. Well, I know what I'll do. I will draw out a box. I will extrude it a bit. And then rotate it from here. Times 10. I'm going to pull it all the way up to here. Now, before I go pulling any more, if I just double click on this face, it's going to remember whatever the measurement was of the last thing I did. So all I have to do is keep double clicking as I go around. And I'm switching to my select tool and grab all of those. Oh, not you. And go back to this guy and check this out. Click from here, and just like you would with your rotation tool, and then check that out. That was quite painless. That's what some of these plugins and extensions will allow you to do. So I encourage you to take a look through the extension warehouse and to see if anything looks neat or is worth trying out. Another that we're going to be using, in fact, you're going to have to do it for your homework tonight, or this week, I should say, is these Curviloft tools. The only one you're going to be worrying about right now is this guy here, creating a loft. Let me get rid of these. And I'm going to draw out a box. And then I'm also going to draw out a triangular kind of shape. And I'm going to move you up. I'm locking it to the blue. And then you see how it kind of snaps to that midpoint. So I'm going to drag it by that midpoint, locking it to red, and line up with that midpoint. Alright, so I've got these two shapes kind of opposing each other. And I'm going to draw a line roughly in the middle from there down to here, and I'll lock it on the blue. Now I've got this thing here. One shape going to another shape with a line connecting the two. If I grab all of that, and I do this one, this create loft, it's going to follow that path. Check. And you can see it kind of transitions from one shape to the other. Kind of figures out as best as it can what it can do. Let's say maybe I didn't want it to do that way. I have some options. In fact, you can see here these yellow lines that show up. Well, here's where you have the chance to muck with them and drag them around. For the most part, I tend to just stick with whatever it gives. And in fact, you're going to need to do that for one of your homework assignment. One thing I should point out, I go to select it and move it. You can see that Curviloft, the object that it created, it grouped it all together and it left my original intact. So just something to keep in mind if you're going to be using it and then need to export something. So let's talk a little bit about intersecting things. I've got right, and I've got a cylinder. Now, if I take this box, I move it so it's inside of this cylinder a little bit, and I click off somewhere. And now I go, oh, wait a minute, this box shouldn't, it's not in the right spot, I need to move it. And I click here and go to move. Well, look what it does to my cylinder. The two are kind of fused together now. The way to avoid that is going to be to group things together. So if I grab all this, right click, make group, grab all of this, right click, make group, and now if I move it, the two are protected from each other, and I can still move this guy around, and they don't fuse together. Now let's say that I want them to be together, and I want this to be one unified shape. Well, I've got both parts grouped together. I can now go to Tools, Outer Shell. And what that did, if I hit Shift-X, which is one of the shortcuts that I had you set up for viewing things in X-ray, you can see that it created the outer shell of those two things merged together and got rid of what was in the middle. Unfortunately, if you want to go the other way, say you want this to be your cutout of the sphere, you're going to need the Pro Tools to be able to do that. Or you have to figure out ways around it to do it yourself. So let's say we want to do that. We want this to be a cutout of that sphere. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select both of them. I'm going to explode them, which is basically ungroup. I'm going to select just this surface here, right-click, and here where I've got intersect faces, I will select with model, and it's going to, anywhere in the model that face happens to intersect with, it's going to draw lines for me. I could also, if I wanted to, select that, and intersect face with selection, and it's only going to look where those two faces intersect to draw a line. But I want the whole thing, so I'm going to intersect faces with model, and you can see that it drew lines wherever that plane, wherever that face touched. But if I view it in X-ray, the guts of the rectangle are still there. So, and then select that and hit delete, 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 delete. And you can see because there's lines there, now it's a by itself and hit delete again, and there's my cutout. I hit E for erase. I can get rid of those guys. And there. There we go. Now you'll notice that some parts are white and some parts are gray. These gray parts are what are called inside-facing faces, and the white parts are outside-facing faces. For our models, we want everything to be outside unless you happen to be actually inside of the model, like in here. Otherwise, you're going to get some errors when you try to print it. So the way that we handle that is we just select parts that are gray, right-click, and reverse faces. And that's easy. You can also, and it doesn't always work all the time, but select one of the white ones and hit Orient Faces. And it's supposed to say, okay, everything on this object that follows this is going to be outside. It doesn't always work, but for most of the time it won't. All right, so now we've talked about groups a little bit and why you would do them. Let's talk a little bit about components. In fact, you'll see you have a component palette here. If you hit the little house, these are all the components that are in my model right now, which is just the enter text that was created automatically. Well, that goes. Let's say that I'm going to create a quick object. Let's say we do this. We'll extract, pull that up, and go here. Pull that. Oh, if I hadn't mentioned it before, if you push-pull all the way to the end of an object, it will get rid of that final bit for you. It's a way to be able to punch holes through stuff. So let's say I want this to be a component as opposed to a group. Well, first, I'll group them just to show you what happens. If I move you and then flip along the group's red, and line you back up with there. Right now it's a symmetrical looking object. I go inside this guy and put something on here and push it all the way through. Oh, where'd it go? Oh, I lost it somewhere in the middle. There we go. You can see that because these are grouped and not components, my change isn't reflected over here. However, let's back that up a little bit. Now if I make this a component, and I'll call you A, you can see in my entity info it now has a definition. I can actually change that if I want to at any time. I'm going to take out that copy, reflect it, or rather flip it along the red. I can now go in here, draw out my circle. You can see one showed up already. Now it stays symmetrical because we made them component. The reason you would do this is, let's say you're making arms and you want your arms to stay symmetrical. You would make them a component. If you're going to be having multiple scenes in the SketchUp, which we will be doing later, and you want one scene to be your build workspace, and you want another one to be, you're showing off your render, so it's got all of your lighting and colors and everything, and another one is your print layout. Well, you make all those components, that way you only have to edit it in one place whenever you have to make a change. Also, let's say that I made an action figure like we're going to be doing, and I found that the ball joints weren't what I needed them to be. In fact, let's go ahead and open that up. This is the base figure that we're going to be making. I've already modeled one. And here it is in its print layout. And so I've got all of these as components so that if I make a change here, or in my build view, if I make a change, it gets reflected in all of my different scenes. Also, because this is a great way to recycle parts, you'll notice that inside the arm, I've got this part here, which is my upper arm. And just playing around, made a set of wings. If you take a look at it, there's that upper arm again. And if I make a change to this ball joint right here, then that will get reflected everywhere that part gets used throughout the model. I haven't tested these wings yet, so I don't know how well they work. Also, I made some hair, and I made a chainmail cape. I don't know if it'll print, but we'll find out. I'll test print it one of these days. So that's what's awesome about the components and why I would use them. Now we're going to do a little bit of an exercise, kind of to work on groups, components, rotating things around, that sort of thing. To do that, back into our folder, lesson 1, I am going to put together a little Papercraft. Those of you who know me know I'm into that sort of thing. So I've got this JPEG here. I just drag it in, explode it. Now, which of these guys do you think I should make? Should I do Jack, Miku, or Ruff? Everybody has an opinion?
I always roll Raph myself.
Okay.
Sure.
Raph it is. All right, so I'm going to cut him out, so to speak. There's his parts. Move, control. Grab all of that. Delete. All right, now to cut out all of his parts. Now, obviously, if this were paper, I would need to cut out, I would cut it out along here the whole way. In SketchUp, we're not going to do that. Instead, each part needs to be separated so that we can rotate it around. So we're going to start out with our line tool. In fact, I could probably even try doing this with a touch of angle there. Line from here to here. Angle again. If you're familiar with trying to draw stuff in Illustrator, this isn't that far off. There are plugins that will allow you to use Bezier curves and such. Whoa. Let's keep it along there, shall we, Ross? There we go. There, switch back to line tool, constrain it green. Come down to here, constrain to red. And green again. And actually, you can see it's a little bit off. So instead I'm going to start this guy and constrain to green come downwards. You can see it doesn't quite line up. So I'm going to take it a little bit far. Escape to break out a line tool. I'm actually going to move that endpoint so that it intersects. And get rid of that. Now, I can move just that part over. Control. There we go. Let's cut out another part. want you to line up with this. So I mouse over that endpoint so that I see the word endpoint show up. And now it's going to inference that point. You can see how a little green line, dotted line is coming down. Now I know it's lined up exactly the same. Strain to the green if I want. There, strain to red. Line up at that point. And then finish that off. Move. Control. Drag that over. Alright, let's get the middle portion of him. I'm actually going to take it straight across. Strain to green, bring it down so that it lines up with that. And now to get this right in the middle, I'm going to infer that midpoint, come down. I've got that dotted green line. I don't know if you can see it on your screen. Hopefully you can. And there. I'm now going to switch over to our angles. There. 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 A little bit more. There we go. And here. And take my eraser, get rid of that line. There we go, we got that. Move, copy. Now I don't need to draw any of that. I've already got these parts, and I can just reflect them. I will now grab these guys, lock it to the green. There, lock red. There, down. Green. There. There. And to get these guys even, what I'm going to do is actually draw out one. I copy it, locking it to the red. Now, you'll notice it won't let me flip it because it's just a line by itself. What I'm going to do is give it another little line, just like that, which I can erase later. Let's shift, grab that. Now it'll let me flip it along the red direction. Get rid of that. And move this from that endpoint, lock it to that endpoint. Now I can finish that off. Except, almost forgot that. Alright, there to there. There to there. And erase that. Move, copy, there, that one, move, control there. We need some arms, but these all look remarkably similar. So I'm just going to use my rectangle tool and drag from there to there and call it a day. Alright. Now what we're going to do is we are going to push-pull all of these up so that they have some thickness, because paper has thickness. We're going to go with 5. Obviously you wouldn't print out something that was 5 millimeters thick, but it'll work for this. You'll notice that when I push-pulled it out, it stretched out that texture. And I don't want that. Paper's white. I'm going to stick with white. But I can double click, because the last thing I did was that 5 mil push-pull. Alright. Now what I'm going to do is there, top. Grab all of these. With my selection tool, I'm going to shift-click on just the top surface, so everything except for that surface is selected. And now if I hit B for materials, because that makes sense, by default it's going to have this white on top and gray on bottom. That's your default color or no color options. So click on that, click on this edge. Now everything that was selected now has that. And close up materials. And now they look like proper pieces of paper. Now I'm going to triple click until I get the entire object. 1, 2, 3. And I have as a hotkey Shift V to make group. So I'm going to group these. Group 1, 2, 3. Group. This guy, however, I know I'm going to be reflecting him, so I'm going to make that one a component. And actually, I'm going to rename it to outside. And this one, make a component inside. One, make component arm side. All right. Now I can put them together. So I'm going to zoom in, grab by that corner there, and so it snaps to that corner. And I'm going to select both of these and make that a component. And just regular, just side. Right. This will move, create a copy from that corner to that corner. Component that way. That's how it is over here. This guy will move over by this corner, line up to that corner, and we will drag a copy out. Put the long component red. Snap it to there, and bring these guys down. They're connected there, and you there. All right, that's looking remarkably like our paper template. So I'm going to get rid of that. I do need 2 arms, so I'll make a copy. All right, so now we've done some groups, we've done some components. Now we get to do some rotation. So I'm going to start with these sections. I'm going to select all of those. And I'm going to switch to my rotate tool, which is cube. And I'm going to hold down Shift so it's locked to the red axis. Click here, out here somewhere. And I'm going to rotate the whole thing up. Now, one thing I want you to notice is as I move it around, I could easily get it at about 20.9 or something. But if I actually have my mouse inside of this red circle, it will lock it to these pre-specified, or snap rather, to these pre-specified angles for me. I want it to be 90. I can actually type in manually 90 and enter. All right, now he's standing up. I'm going to go inside this and rotate that one around. Down there. And you can see on our other one. And we'll rotate that around, although that's not the red, but we need it to rotate around red. So what we're going to do is we click here without letting go and drag it down that line. Now I let go. And I can click out here for my second point and rotate it around 90. So now that way I was able to get it to rotate around the axis that I wanted, even though that plane wasn't there. So let's do the same thing on this side. 2. And drag down. Grab that over here, bring it around 90. Said it was about 90. I want to make sure it's exactly. There we go. There. I'm going to click and select both of these guys. Rotate on here. Let's see, now how far does it have to go? It's hard to tell. What I'm going to do is switch to my my tape measure, and this guy right here is the edge that I need to be lined up with. So I'm going to just draw a construction line out there so that I can rotate you around, and I can see where that's going to line up with that bit. So I'll put it right there. That looks pretty good. I can get rid of that construction line by hitting erase. I'll now grab you. Now that's in the way. So I will hold down Shift, and then I'll hit Shift X because that's our hotkey for X-ray. And now I can click on that point. And there. Hit Shift X again to break out of that. You can see. I want it to, that edge to line up with these guys. So you can see it snaps it to that corner. But this was a little bit long. What can I do about that? I'll go in here, go into this one. I can actually push-pull so that it lines up there. And I'll do the same thing for the inside one. There we go, now they're all nice and even. Need some arms. Move those arms over. Go inside this component. Rotate that around. Hit move. Now when I move, in the move tool you see these little red things show up, and sometimes the rotate tool, rotate compass shows up. Well, that's another way to rotate things around without actually going to the rotate tool. If you're in the move tool and you have a group or a component, it won't work otherwise. You can then just grab one of these guys and rotate it around by that. That's what I'm going to do here. That angle looks good. And I'll go by this midpoint right here. There we go, that looks good. Maybe move it back just a little bit so I'm locking it between in-frame. There we go. Now for the other arm, you can see it already folded it around because it was a component. Move that around. Move that to the same angle. What is that one? Now this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab it by this corner and lock it to the blue axis. And Shift X, well now it's not locked to the blue anymore. So I'll unlock it, lock it again. For some reason jumping back and forth between X-ray will do that to you, just so you're aware of it. Now I can reference this point, and I'll know that this is moved up so that it's exactly lined up with that. I'll do the same thing, grab that corner again. This time I'll lock the green axis. And there. Now all I have to do is that corner again, lock it to the red axis, and line up with that face. And there's rough. Now you're saying, all right, well, I know we signed up here to do, action figures and 3D modeling, not to do papercraft, but I think that this will be a great exercise for you to figure out how to cut things out, how to work with groups and with components and moving objects and rotating them around. So as part of your homework, inside of our shared folder, I've got 4 other Papercraft templates. Just pick one. You don't have to do all 4. Just pick one of them. Either a particular flavor of the of Convoy or Atomic Robo. Also for homework, you've got to make these shapes using the tools that you've been shown. You've got all of the dimensions that you need to figure it out. It's just a matter of what tools are you going to use. Got toilet paper, you got like an egg. Well, in this view it kind of looks like an egg, but you'll notice it's 200 by 100 by 150. So I'll leave that to you to figure out. This one is going to be a little bit weird. This is going to use that loft tool, where you're going to draw out one shape and another shape in this interior line, and then you're going to let Loft figure out the rest of it. And this is just making the SketchUp logo. Again, it's going to be a lot of push-pull, maybe snapping out some guides to make sure that you have it exactly where your lines are supposed to be, but it shouldn't be too difficult for you. Does anybody have any questions over any of the stuff that I've gone over tonight?
I noticed there's you using a lot of hotkeys.
Mm-hmm.
Like now I know we assigned some when you on that first video,
Right.
but I noticed when I was playing around with while you were doing it, like just when you hit some of the letters, it went, but mine weren't assigned. Like, do you have them all assigned, or is there a default assigned?
There are defaults. The only ones that I've assigned are Shift-X, make it invisible, Shift-H, which shows hidden geometry. On this guy you can't see much, but there's some curved stuff. And then you can use them at the same time.
But like even switching between like select and line and stuff like that, mine doesn't seem to do that. You know what I mean?
Like just R should be rectangle, space for select.
Yeah, do I have to do that manually?
Really? That is strange. You might want to take a look at your preferences, because those should be, default. But let's take a look in preferences, shortcuts. These are all the ones that you would assign, but let's see.
Yeah, those baked-in ones are working on mine, so there might be a config thing.
Sorry. Yeah, can you see here? It's assigned a space, rectangle, or rectangle, R. And so these should be there unless something's weird with your setup.
Yeah, I'll just play around with it.
Okay. Let's see. Also, if you go to Tools, like just in this drop-down, you should see what the assigned keys are. E for eraser, B for paint bucket, M for move.
Weird, yeah, mine doesn't have that there.
Wow. Okay, I've never seen that before. I guess you're just special, Joey. One little thing I wanted to show before we wrap up. Come on, there we go. Is the things that you can do with the eraser tool. Let's say that I have a shape. I'll go with this. I will do that. If I hit Shift H, now you can see all the hidden geometry. Without hitting anything, I just use the eraser. You can see it, as you expect, it gets rid of that line. If I draw it back from that point to that point, it's now solid. Hide geometry, like, well, that's kind of ugly, I don't want that there. And you'll find that when you merge stuff, SketchUp is going to go adding lines of its own. If I go to erase, I try to get rid of that, it goes away again. That's not what I wanted. If I hold down Shift and erase it, it hides the line. But if I move to certain points, you can see there's still that sharp edge. It's just not showing the line. If I hold down Control while erasing, that's going to soften the line. And that's going to make it so that it displays as being round. That's not going to have any impact whatsoever on how your stuff prints out, but it is going to make your models look better and look cleaner when you go to show off your renders. So I just want to show that. I'll save rough here in the in our shared folder so you can take a look at the file if you want. Come on. Rough. All right, so now you guys can access that if you need to or would like to. Has anybody else gotten a chance to play around with the program? Or just setting it up?
I've been poking at it here and there while we were going, but I found it got harder to like watch the video and poke at the thing at the same time. But,
that's understandable.
No, like it feels like it's just another language. Like you got to get used to the shortcuts and
oh, sure. Yeah, definitely.
Halfway through, I had to start up my work laptop so I could try to watch on one and try to fiddle around on the other.
Okay. Were you successful?
A little bit. Started a little bit late in that, so.
All right.
Just a little bit of a request. Like you're doing a lot of toggling back and forth and a lot of jumping around, and if you could sort of like say what shortcuts you're using so that we could sort of, because we don't have it memorized like you do yet.
Well, sure.
We're attempting to try to do this at your pace. So
okay, sorry.
Down if we have to keep on trying to find, we just keep on falling behind. So if you could like just verbally say, okay, sure. I'm now going to toggle rectangle R, or just say R and then draw the rectangle or whatever.
Sure, I can do that. That's easy enough. All right. Any other requests or critiques? We've still got about a half an hour left of class time. We went pretty quick through this. I don't want to get into too much, because I don't want to overload you guys with a whole bunch of information at once.
Just one more thing. I noticed that when you stopped talking, Andrew's like question mark logo kept on popping up on at least my screen.
Oh, do you know what? It's probably because my mic was picking up noise. Maybe I should turn off my mic when he's talking.
Yeah.
That's a conceit of Hangouts. Yeah, it's a little annoying. I've been through that before.
Well, one thing you can do is while, like when we're in class like this, you can actually click on my box in the Hangout, and it'll keep mine as the focus, regardless of who's talking.
I just learned something about Google Hangouts. It's amazing. If I click on your box, it'll stay in focus.
There we go.
Well played.
Excellent.
Much better.
Excellent. All right, great. Yeah, and actually, I've been recording this session, so as soon as we're done and I hit end broadcast, it'll spit out a YouTube link for me. So I'll go ahead and put that into our shared folder as well, so that at any time, if you'd like, you can go through this session again.
Cool. I probably will be.
Cool.
Yeah, I'll scramble for it.
All right. I'm also planning on kind of going over.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. What was that?
Homework. You wanted to review the work, the homework.
Yep. So in our shared folder. Come on. Oh, there we go. I've got folders for each of you guys. So if you could just go ahead and toss your SketchUp files in there, then it'll sync up and I'll be able to take a look at them. Or if you have, projects on your own that you're working on that you'd like me to take a look at, I'm happy to do that as well.
Cool.
So let's see now. What else can we talk about? I can show you some of the stuff that I've been working on lately if you like.
Sure.
If that'd be useful for you. All right. Actually, lately I've been doing a lot of stuff with armor rotters. I don't know if you guys have heard of them or not.
Yeah, it's done for girls.
Yep, it is.
And some Sentinel work in there too. That's exciting.
Yeah, actually, I am going to be doing a tabletop game for them.
Sweet.
That is going to be a free download on their website using the Papercraft versions of their mechs.
That's pretty awesome.
So, and it's going to be like a free download for this basic training, tabletop strategy game. In fact, let's go to this one. So, kind of what we've been doing with this exercise today with Roth, I've been doing a lot lately, but with the little bit more complex scale. There it is. So there's the mech, there's all of the weapons, the pilot. My system's getting slowed down, that's why he's losing textures, including all of the other game parts. The reason I'm doing all of this is so that then I can export my stuff like this. Make these nice renders of the Papercraft parts that I can then put together with my trait instructions. And so I'm hesitant to open up Photoshop. And so you can see by using SketchUp with the Papercraft templates, I'm able to make a very professional looking instruction page.
Oh, nicely done.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's cool.
The actual templates were done in Flash, actually, because I like their drawing tools better than Illustrator. But I'm a little bit weird that way. Let's see, some of the other stuff I've been working on. I started working on modeling the class figure that we'll be doing in the advanced course. So far, I just have a torso modeled, but as you can see, as compared to, oh, I've got the this turned on, I think. Oh wait, am I in the wrong one? Maybe I'm in the wrong one. Something happened. Oh, that's the auto. Here we go. You'll notice this SketchUp creates these little auto saves for you. So there's the torso that we're going to be making in the advanced class. We've got like a ball joint here, one here, like 2 for the shoulders, 2 for the neck, big one for the an ab crunch and waist swivel. So this guy's going to end up having about 28 points of articulation. And this is the figure I'm going to be giving away at the end of that course. Just to give you an idea of what's up ahead. One other way to get an idea for what all SketchUp is capable of doing is actually to go to the model warehouse. I don't know if you guys have checked that out yet. Let's see, you should be able to get to it from inside of here. Where are you at? At least you used to be able to. Extension and get models. There we go. This is the 3D warehouse that SketchUp puts together, and it's basically a place for any of their users to upload their own files, and then anybody else can download them. I do not recommend that as a way to, take somebody else's work and shove it into a 3D file or 3D model, but it is a good way to take a look at what people have done and then learn from it. So here I did a search for Optimus. And these are all, so you're going to get a wide range of people that actually know what they're doing, and then 11, 12-year-old kids that are putzing around with it.
The Optimus Prime head looks pretty sweet.
Doesn't it? And if I click on this download thing, actually, let's check out Laser Optimus. Load this directly into your SketchUp model? Sure. This was a big one, wasn't it? I should have picked something smaller. Probably because I'm doing the Hangouts also. You guys get the joy of watching this little bar move across the screen.
That's part of the experience.
Yeah, right?
It's training for rendering.
Almost there. There we go. Zoom out. Oh. Okay, SketchUp is freaking out on me here. Alright, so come on. You know what, I think this file might be a little too big. Let's close that out. And I'll reopen it. We'll grab a different one that's a little smaller. We'll grab that Optimus head, the one that was looking good, not the 4-year-old one. Keep hitting enter, but it does nothing until I hit search. Hey, there's your Hearts of Steel Optimus chest. Alright, let's try this guy. Please go quickly. Am I just asking my poor little laptop to do too much at once? Maybe.
So do these people just submit these when they're done?
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, you can do it right from SketchUp. So let's say you model up something that you think is pretty cool and you want to share it with the world. You can upload it to the 3D warehouse and anybody can take a look at it or download it and add it to their own models. It's very open in that regard. So the reason I recommend checking out the 3D warehouse is so that you can take a look at other people's models and you can see how they built them, what they did. In fact, if I go to X-ray, you can see this one's got a lot of garbage inside of it.
Yeah.
You know, this was obviously not designed at all for 3D printing. However, would it still 3D print? It probably would. The Shapeways will just fuse these different objects together. It would still work for you, just it wouldn't be a very clean file. But the other day I saw one. No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
How did you access the model warehouse? I can get to the extension warehouse. I don't know where the model warehouse is, though.
Let's see. I'm not actually sure where it is under these drop downs. What I ended up doing in order to find it, well, you can either go directly to the website, or I clicked inside of my toolbar and hit the warehouse.
Oh, I see, yeah.
And then that's where these guys show up. I don't normally keep them there, so I'm going to uncheck that.
I got it.
But we can also access it, directly through the web. And sometimes that's a little bit faster than trying to do it through SketchUp and just download the files and put them somewhere. You see there's a lot of architecture stuff here, a lot of buildings, a lot of Gundam fans, actually, for whatever reason. But you'll be able to see, like, some people will do, like, look for, like, really good ones. This hand looks pretty good. If I click it and don't try to download it, there we go. If I hit this little orbit, it'll actually load it inside of the browser, and you can spin it around. You can then download it if you want to actually look at it in SketchUp and deconstruct it. Those are pretty good. There's a lot of detail in here. Again, this isn't something that you would do for printing because none of this detail would show up unless you printed it at a ridiculously large size. Some of these people, they just make these because that's their hobby. They don't plan on doing anything with them other than to model them, I guess.
And eventually build a Gundam.
Yeah.
That's kind of my own end game here.
1:1 scale.
It's basically going to be a strand beast with cannons on it, but I'm going to call it a Gundam.
That works. All right. I guess you guys have the choice. We can either, wrap it up here, or we can start going over homework stuff, or if you have questions you want to fire at me, that's cool. What would you guys like to do with our remaining 12 minutes?
I'm up for whatever. Figure out how to take over the world.
How'd your other class go there yesterday?
It went pretty well. Actually, one of the students had a project that he was already kind of trying to work on, and so he, sent that over to me, and so we looked at it in class and took a look at what he was doing, and he had questions about, well, when I erase this line, everything goes away, and where did it go, and how do I bring it back? And we went over some of that stuff.
Cool. How many? What have you got? 8 in the other one?
I've got 4 in this one, 6 in the other one, and 6 that are doing video only.
Oh, cool. The prime head's pretty sweet.
It is. There's actually a lot of prime heads that I've seen. A lot of Transformers fans in the 3D warehouse also. Some good, some ridiculously bad. It's a lot like DeviantArt in that respect.
Well, what you were mentioning before about there being junk in the head, I'm guessing that when you're doing something for 3D printing, you've got to optimize the model as best you can for that?
Yes, actually, there I just exploded it. You can see all the different groups. And did you use any components at all? Yeah, there's some components in here. Cool. Oh, there's a truck. Where the hell is the truck?
Somewhere in the head?
Click on that and drag it out. There's a truck hiding in this model. That was unexpected. Looks cool, though. Sorry, to answer your question. Shapeways, when you upload stuff, does have a polygon count that you have to stay under. So if you have a lot of this stuff, intersecting and it's not a clean model, then that will up your polygon count. And even if it doesn't print, it still gets added to that total. So if you can keep the stuff clean and you can get rid of anything that's inside as much as you can, then it's kind of a trade-off. Like, on the one hand, you make it ridiculously difficult for yourself to try to edit later. But on the other hand, you're upping that polygon count, so you might not be able to upload your total file to Shapeways. But they'll still print it, because I've had a couple of times where I've gone to print something, and I accidentally didn't have my print layout done right, and I end up having like an arm merged with a head. So they'll, if you do it this way, it will still print. It just doesn't look as clean, and I don't know, dock you points or something for it if I see it in your homework.
And I don't know if this is some, like, stepping a little too far ahead in the timeline here, but like setting up a model for Shapeways printing, is that the same kind, like those practices and you know, best practices, are those the kind of things you know, if that's the kind of stuff you keep in mind for home 3D printer, like one of the layer printers or the pull it out of the goo kind of printer?
Yeah, those are going to be entirely different in the way that you design your model also. Because of the way that they print. The way that Shapeways White Strong and Flexible prints is it lays down, like inside of an oven, it lays down this very fine powder of nylon plastic. And it heats that plastic up to it's just shy of melting, but not quite. And then it runs a laser over the powder, and the laser draws a design, which is the layer of that model at that point. And then it puts down another layer of powder, and another pass with the laser. And so as it builds it up, the powder that didn't get laser sintered supports the powder that does. And so you're able to design anything in any kind of geometry and angle, because you know that there's going to be powder in there to support it. And then once they finish with that and they let it cool a sufficient amount of time, they basically play archaeologist and go in with little brushes and try to excavate whatever model it was that you printed.
That's cool. So you can build in like 3D space. You don't have to build supports or anything like
Correct.
that.
Right.
Or
So that's the
away.
Yeah, definitely. And so that's the bonus for like when you're designing stuff for Shapeways, is you don't have to worry about supports. You don't have to worry about will this geometry be able to support itself while it's being printed. In the advanced course, I'm going to be going over how to design stuff for like FDM printers, which is the fused deposition modeling printer. Those are the home printers, like your MakerBots and your Lulz bots and such, where you do have to keep that in mind. You can't design anything that's going to overhang too far, or else it'll start to sag, or you can't. Let's say that you wanted to, I don't know, print a rainbow. You know, that kind of arc shape, but it had like another little thing sticking out, like you had a double, you know, two rainbows next to each other. You know what? Here, I'll just model it. As opposed to trying to gesture with my hands that you can't see.
I keep nodding at the monitor if it helps at all.
Ah, good. That does help. Thank you. All right. I'll just draw out I hit R, rectangle, draw that out. D for tape measure. Something there. Something to about there. Another one about here. And here. Go to my arc tool. You know, I'm going to completely ignore these, and so to speak. Got something like this, and another one coming out like this. Sorry, space, select, M, move, control, left, so I can drain it. There, erase, there, space, and now I'm holding shift to select multiples, there, and move, control, copy, and left constrain to green, drag that down to there, E, erase, get rid of those, and there. So, and we will extrude you. P for push pull. make that a group so that I can rotate it that way, because I don't feel like doing the rotation tool. All right, so let's say I've got a shape like this. Be it Lego lady hair or something.
Is
Or
that a double rainbow?
could be, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Let's say you've got a shape like this. Shapeways would be able to print it in white, strong, flexible, no problem. They wouldn't even bat an eyelash at it. However, if you wanted to do this on a home printer, I mean, obviously it's flat, you could just lay it down. But in this kind of configuration, it would start to lay down this layer by layer, and then it would get here, and it would try to print this floating over nothing. You know, and it would just, you know, just spit it down, and so you'd have, this would be called what we call an overhang. And so if I wanted to actually print this out on a home printer, I then have to think about, okay, how can I angle this thing, you know, so that it will print out, like, okay, if I do it this way, then it can print it this direction, and it'll print out okay. If it was a much more complex part, say we got we'll throw some stuff in here, back that out. I'll throw a circle on this side, C, circle. Well, now this part I couldn't really lie it down on its side because it wouldn't work that way. And if I rotate it, rotated it around this way, it would start to print here, and then once it got to here, I'd have another overhang that it couldn't print. So this particular shape, you wouldn't be able to print on a home printer. You'd have to try to figure out some other way of getting around it and designing for that. You know, one way to get around it, you might take this part. Well, I am space to shift and then holding down shift to select multiple. And I'm hitting Control C to copy. Pull that back down. E, erase. And then if I go up to Edit, Paste in Place, it's back there again, but outside of that, well, then I might decide, oh, okay, if I take this, move M, constraint blue up, L for line, I finished that off, got chopped off somehow. Yep, there's another hole, close that up. Oh, it didn't, because see how it bent that inwards, and here it's not bent in. Just the joys of SketchUp sometimes. I'm going to hit Shift H for viewing a hidden. Get rid of view, and get rid of view. And just L line, draw that across. There we go. And Control to soften those. Shift H. Alright. Now I might go to my offset, bring that in a bit, P, push pull, create a little peg, E, soften that back up again, Base, select, shift, grab that, Hold C, and M, move, down control, tap Control to make it a copy, constrain to blue, and I'm putting it right there, and now I'm going to hit Control X to cut it, jump into this guy, edit, paste in place. You can see it didn't quite put it in there, so I'm just going to redraw one of these lines, and it still didn't. Come on, SketchUp, you're making me look bad. Got rid of that one. All right, where are you off? sometimes it tries to be helpful and it doesn't work. So just start cutting away at it. Oh, look, there's something funny going on here. Maybe that's part of the issue. No, that wasn't it. No. All right, get rid of those. And because that's actually, I mean, there's no reason that it should be like this, but I'm going to space select. So I'm selecting nothing. M for move. I'm actually going to grab, oh, I'm outside of it, back inside. M move, and grab just that endpoint and move it there. And I'll do the same thing for one of these guys. But it'll let me. Let me add another line right here. Of course, that one. I know this sucks, but unfortunately, sometimes it's just. This is why SketchUp's free. All right, I'm gonna make sure I've got nothing selected. Move tool, M, and try to drag this down to that point. Sometimes it will make the shape that you want. It just doesn't know it can. So you have to tell it to. I'm just using the move tool to drag these different points over to the edge where they're supposed to be. L for line. There, back to M for move. Drag that in. Something weird here. Oh, because there's a teeny tiny little line here. And move there. And you'll get to the end and you'll be like, that's what I wanted in the first place. Why didn't you just do what I wanted? And SketchUp will be like, screw you, I don't care. And deselect. There we go. Like, nope, I'm out of it. You notice that if I select outside of that data line, it gets me out of the object. If I select inside of it, then I'll just deselect. Things to keep in mind. Now I can just delete that, and now it's what I wanted in the first place, and SketchUp is doing it just fine, but you had to coax it. At any rate, we'll reverse those faces. Oh, and then you reverse that face. So now that I made this a separate part and a peg, I could then take this guy, flip it over, and it could print this way without any problems. Even that little hole in it, it would be fine to print because it's already built up that much of a wall to attach things to. And then you would print this part out as a separate piece, probably. I have a shortcut key for a group, so it's just G. M move, flip that over, print it in that configuration. That way you don't have any overhangs. And now once they've printed, you can just wedge that little spot, that little piece in to finish off your original shape. So as you can see, there's a lot more that you have to keep in mind if you're going to be designing things for a home printer. Are you guys familiar at all with Modibot?
No.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
No.
Modibot is a project by a former Hasbro toy designer named Wayne Losey. And he designed his, here we'll go to it. He designed this dude so that it could be printed on like a home printer, and then he did like a big Kickstarter to get this thing injection molded, and then he has all of these different accessories and bonus parts and stuff that are on his Shapeways site for you to outfit your dude. But he's also got another side project. What is it called again? Just a second, I have it on my phone. It's an app, like an iOS app, called Madio.
Oh, I think who was it? FakeBusker showed that to me at TFCon.
That's not what I want.
Yeah, apparel boxes. I remember that.
Yeah. Madio 3D. That's the name of the site. The reason I bring this guy up, this is the side project of Wayne's. Everything here is designed to be able to be printed on a home printer, like a RepRap or a MakerBot, and it's like an interactive iOS app that has like a virtual toy box where you can take all these different parts of things, slap them together to create, unique and new figures. You can then play with the textures on those parts, and every single one of them, like I said, is designed to be able to print at home.
That's cool.
So, like, this, in my opinion, is like a master of being able to print for that medium, or at least close to it, in terms of the kind of stuff that we want to do.
Is that all free, or is it subscription?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, he's actually, the app itself is free, and like I said, I don't know if it's on Android or not. I know it's on iOS. And you throw it together, you make your figure like in this 3D space, and then you can actually export the STL file, like over like through a web browser, like that hooks into your Wi-Fi network. And it'll actually, like if you put them in different colors, like this one here, it'll group them according to the color, and it'll actually have it all arranged and everything exactly how you need it to print it out at home. So, very impressed with the technology behind this. But this is some advanced level stuff.
so is
And,
that
a bit
just
outside of the scope of what we're going to be covering.
would that just be a hobby for him then, or does he like make an income off of this? How does?
Well, I know that he does a lot of. He doesn't work for Hasbro anymore. He left them, I guess, probably about going on 10 years now. Like, are you familiar with the G.I. Joe Sigma 6 line?
Yeah.
That's all his designs. He also did the Zevos figures.
Yep.
You remember that line? That's his stuff. He's also worked on like Star Wars stuff. I think he did like there were some chunky kind of cartoony looking things. I think those in Star Wars. I think those are his. But he's done a lot of stuff. He's been in the business for decades. What he does now is, I think he does like a lot of consulting, like for different like toy developers. And then he also has his Modibot stuff that he works on. And I don't know, whenever I talk to him, he's always traveling around the country speaking at this 3D printing expo or that, that show, this Maker Fair or whatever. He's definitely like one of the Shapeways darlings. They love having him over.
Yeah. What do you think about?
So,
What do you think about Hasbro doing the Shapeways stuff, like with My Little Pony and Transformers coming up soon?
I am of mixed opinions on that. I think it's really cool of Hasbro to kind of open themselves up in that way, to allow people to start playing with their IP. As a designer, though, it's kind of a bit of a golden cage, a gilded cage. It switch back to here.
There's a lot of restrictions, right?
Big time. Yeah, a lot of restrictions. There we go. Yeah, there's a lot of restrictions. Like you can do this, you can't do that. Like for example, with Transformers, you're not allowed to make any actually transforming figures. You're not allowed to do any construction figures, but they don't really define what that means. Like, does that mean Creo stuff? Does it mean Creon stuff? It doesn't mean an action figure kit. where you just put together the parts. They don't really define it. I just know that a number of my sets that were submitted were rejected on the grounds that they were considered construction sets.
And then what was that? Just ball joints and stuff like that?
Yep. Yep. Whereas
So they only want statues, then.
That's my thought. I mean, if you look at the My Little Pony stuff that's been accepted, most of that is all like full color sandstone statues.
But no saddles.
So I'm guessing, yeah, no saddles. Although I don't know if you would be able to get away with a transforming pony. I'd be willing to push that line.
I think a friend of mine, Trent Troop, was he's been doing like Battle Beast alikes on Shapeways, and he had come up with a Battle Beast My Little Pony thing, and I'm not sure if that ended up working for the guidelines or not, because I know that was one of those, like, it falls on, like, halfways on so many of the bullet points that it was really difficult to tell how that would go.
Actually, I remember seeing an article about that, and it was rejected.
Damn.
Yep. For whatever reason. I don't know, maybe they thought the armor looked like a saddle.
Well, it's one big saddle, technically, I guess. Do you think that's them on their legal end, just sort of casting the widest net and then over time tweaking it to get thinner and more refined?
Probably. I know that they have in the works like plans for their own home 3D printer, and or at least they've put in the the legal paperwork for it.
Yeah, they partnered up with a 3D printing company, didn't they?
Right, Stratasys, I think.
Yeah.
Or either that or 3D Systems. One of the two. But yeah, so I'm guessing that they're probably going to try to make some sort of dumbed down, kid-friendly 3D printer. Probably not the Play-Doh printer that we saw from ThinkGeek a few years ago, but something along those lines. My guess is that they're going to have some sort of like 3D warehouse sort of thing, where they'll have a curated group of models that people can then like download directly to their printer, and basically it'll just be tchotchkes. You'll be able to make a keychain with an Autobot logo on it. If I had to take a guess, that's probably what we're looking at.
I wonder if they charge for the actual models, or they just charge for the refill plastic in the printer or something like that. I'm always curious how they plan to make money off of stuff like this.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, it's all speculation right now. We've seen, well, I know that the 3D Systems, the company that makes a lot of the different 3D printers, they have proprietary like cartridges for the material, and so we're probably going to see something very similar to that. Where you'll pay, let's say, $1,000 for the printer, and then you're going to have to pay, like $50 for each cartridge of color that you want, and each one will probably only give you enough material to make like one small item. So that might be how they make their money, is just in material, as opposed to through their models. And the models will probably be very curated.
I imagine with the Shapeways partnership thing, it's just them realizing, well, people are going to make these models anyways. At least if we do this, we have some sort of control over what gets made. So it's not like two My Little Ponies doing it or something like that.
I'd still like to know what discussion led to the saddles bullet point. That's one of those things that I was looking at that going, like, there's a reason why it's that specific, and I don't really want to know why, but I kind of do.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd be really curious to be a fly on that wall too. There's a Toys R Us not far from me that actually is part of the pilot program for Toys R Us, where they have a couple of 3D printers in there. And I went up to them and I asked them, like, okay, what are your plans for these printers? What are you doing with them? And they had a little kiosk where you went up to it, and they had a handful of different models, and then you could quote unquote customize them by like adding your name, like either extruded on top of the model or something like that, and you got to pick a color, and that was about it. And then they would 3D print it for you.
Walmart had something like that, a few test stores where you like go in, they scan your face, and you print it on like an Iron Man figure or something like that. A few months or a year ago or something like that. I forget what it was called.
Oh, a friend of mine got one of those from a press event where they did that as part of the the goodie bag. And his looks for what it is. It looks pretty cool. Like he popped the head off the figure immediately, so now he just has an action figure head of himself that's a little bit fuzzy, and it's interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of possibilities. Like it's going to be an interesting area in the next 10 years, anyways. 3D printing.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, how it's going to change the business model.
Oh yeah, in fact, you can
recall,
see it changing now. I mean, people are, some of the big companies are afraid of what might happen.
Yeah, that's why I'm taking this class, because it's inevitable. I got to dive into it.
Mhm.
Well, you were sharing some months ago. There was a kickstarted desktop 3D printer that was getting a startup going. I can't remember what it was called, but it looks like the hurdle right now is just what the home side of it's going to be.
Mhm. Was it one that I was trying to raise money for, or?
I just remember you shared it, I think, on Facebook or something. All I remember, it's one of the ones where it would pull the object up out of a medium.
Okay. Yes, that is the iBox Nano, and I did support it, and supposedly I'll be getting it sometime around April. I don't know, we'll see. That particular one, it works a lot like the Form 1, which is like a resin-based printer. Like you said, it pulls it up out of the goo. And this particular one actually will run off of a USB drive. It'll actually draw its power from USB, and has a print window of about like 1.5 inches by 2 inches by 3 inches. So it's very, very small things that you can print.
Mm-hmm.
And but I figure, it was like $150 to support it to get that printer. I thought that was worth that investment.
Yeah, I almost went for it if I had the spare cash. I thought their video was it was kind of funny because their video was trying to make the case for the everyman, the everybody having this printer, and it felt like they hit some creative walls because it was like these everyday folks generally going like, I could print dice, and that's about as far as it went. I was like, I'm sure this could go somewhere else, but.
Yeah, well, for me and for what you guys will be able to do, I see that as being a great way to print heads. To do custom heads and print those off pretty quickly and easily. Because you figure, they're going to be like this big anyway, so that'll be perfect for that kind of printer. Also, something that small can travel. So that means if you're going to a convention, you're set up like in the artist alley, you could be printing heads out at the con.
Yeah, we had there was a filmmaker thing here in Toronto where a fellow had brought a MakerBot style 3D printer to show about how he was printing just gear like battery cases and stuff. And it was clunky, and he had to make sure that it was on a level surface and wouldn't fall over from the force of its own printing arm. But being able to just pull out the box, set it down, and go like, here, I'm going to get this printing job going while we're going to talk about something, it has a really cool effect just on the presentation, the conversation.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, they're pretty amazing to see them working, even if it's slow.
Yeah.
I haven't been paying attention. Was there anything cool 3D printing wise released at CES this year?
I haven't gone through it either. I've been kind of watching the Twitter and seeing what's been talked about. I know that one home printer that I was really interested in, called the Pro Studio 3D. Made by a company called Bot Objects, got bought out by 3D Systems, and so their technology is going to be getting rolled into the latest version of the Cube printer. And their tech, basically imagine the way a CMYK printer works, like in 2D, and apply that to printing in plastic. So it's actually got CMYK and one other one, which I think is support. So it's got like these 5 different material cartridges that you plug into it, and as it feeds this material into the printer, it can mix them so that it'll actually print out in full color.
That's very cool.
Yeah, I actually got to see them at a 3D printing expo last year, and it was pretty cool what they were doing. Although at the time they could only print in gradients. So you would print, like one layer would be blue, and then slightly less blue and more yellow, and so as you went from bottom to top, you would have this color gradient, and that was kind of cool. But I was like, I need to be able to print, like Tailgate's face, and that's not doing it yet. But they were like, oh no, it'll do that. The hardware can handle it. It's just the software isn't there yet. We're not happy with it. I was like, okay, that's cool. So I imagine probably in the next year or two we'll probably be seeing printers that can do that.
Yeah. Well, they can do that with gypsum-based ones, can't they now? Or like full color, gradient color.
Yeah, Shapeways has something that they call full color sandstone, and that one, it works similarly to the nylon sintered stuff, where it's like layers of powder, but instead of like blasting like a laser over it, it puts down like a thin layer of resin. And then it also has like inkjet built into it. So as it does like a layer of resin, then it goes over it with like the outer edges of that shape in color. And then it does another layer of powder, resin, color. And so as it builds up, it creates that full color shape. But it is sandstone, so it's very brittle. It's good for making little tchotchkes and trinkets and little statues, but you wouldn't want to make a figure out of it.
It's like drywall, right? Kinda,
yeah.
I got to handle one of the sandstone Battle Beast figures that was in the case at in Chicago at TFCon, and it felt interesting. It was heavier than it looked, but it definitely didn't feel like toy.
No.
It felt like a sculpture, basically.
Yeah, that's what it is, pretty much.
Like a little chess piece.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so great for making little tchotchkes. Maybe I will. I've got several models of little, Transformer characters. So maybe for the super fan art thing, I'll get rid of all of the joints and I'll just fuse like somebody in like a cool pose and make it available in full color sandstone. Call it a day. Will it sell? I don't know. Maybe there's a lot of Tailgate fangirls out there.
Yeah.
One downside to the super fan art, because you had asked about that earlier, is Hasbro actually takes a cut out of your commission.
Well, that's what I imagined. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I add $1 to my, like, say I make a model, and it's going to cost me $12.50 to be able to print it out, I add $1.50, so just to get it like $1 plus enough to get it to the next whole dollar. So the total price ends up being, like $14. If that were part of the super fan art thing, Hasbro's then going to hit me for like 30% of my $1.50.
Oh, so they go after you and not what Shapeways would charge.
Yep.
Now you get to decide, like if you do a figure and put on Shapeways, you decide the price and you decide your cut of the profit, I guess.
Yep.
Huh.
And so the cheaper that you can make it to print, the more flexibility you have in what you want to charge for it. You're going to see a lot of things on Shapeways, like a lot of bottle openers and jewelry and stuff, where people just charge ridiculous amounts for it, and their cost to print it is going to be significantly less. They can afford to add like $20, $30, $40 of markup to it, but with the action figure collectors and the Transformer collectors, the kind of people that we're going to be marketing to, they're not going to pay that. They're used to buying stuff from Walmart, Target, wherever, for like $15, $20 for like a transforming deluxe figure in full injection molded plastic, and they'd have to pay that exact same amount for somebody this size, that they would then have to paint and put together themselves. And there's no way that I'd be able to charge. I mean, I charge just the tiniest little bit just to try to recoup some of my prototype costs.
Yeah. I see a lot of like guns and hands and stuff like that. just for a quick customization type thing.
Oh, sure.
Which I can see if you do a good design, you can probably sell a few and make a little coin if you were good at it.
Well, I would say that arguably the best Transformers-themed designer on Shapeways is going to be Fake Buster, Ariel Lemon, and his stuff is probably the most popular and the most well-designed stuff on Shapeways for Transformers collectors. However, I know that he doesn't charge that much in markup, and he still lives with his parents.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, don't quit your day job, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you can, I don't know. Personally, I'm actually starting to become more, I guess, disillusioned with Shapeways and their process. And I'm starting to look more and more at companies like Mechazone. I know, Chris, you did a couple reviews on their Mechanaut stuff.
Yeah, and I've been talking to him a lot ever since. Basically, I actually met him through the Armor Marauders Facebook group, and his operation's very interesting. It's just him still. It's him and two printers. So the dollar per hour that he's pulling is pretty ridiculously low for the amount of time it takes to print, because he's basically running it on home printers, and he's doing an acetone treatment. So while he's escaping having to both wait for and pay for Shapeways services, it takes, like, I think he told me it took 14 or 15 hours to just print the parts for one of his 6-inch figures.
And that's for just one figure, right?
Just for one figure, and then that's assuming all the parts print correctly. Then he goes in, does cleanup, does acetone treatment and paint and assembly. And this is all ignoring designing the actual figure in the first place, too. Which that's something I tried to make a point of in the videos, because I knew immediately if you say $65 for a 3D printed 6-inch figure, it's like, what are you talking about? So I tried to lay it out like, all right, imagine someone is designing on a piece of paper a robot, and now they're designing that robot in a CAD program. Imagine how long that might take from scratch, and add that into your math of how the $65 turns into their time. But I was going to ask you, like, if you thought Shapeways is keeping up with the market, because when I saw the potential of what one of those home printers could do, which I honestly didn't think was possible until I'd handled some of his stuff and seen some of what Brown Noise and Prometheum 5 were doing with similar processes, like, does it feel like Shapeways is just sort of hoping to carry on with their name recognition, or?
That's part of it. They've definitely made it quite a name for themselves. I think that, like, I'm part of the Shapeways crew, meaning that, like, I do a lot of, like, their live events for them, and kind of basically a Shapeways evangelist. But I've noticed that other than Ariel Lemon and myself, almost everybody else that's on the crew is jewelry designers. They're making rings and necklaces, and maybe you might get one or two people that make like a little figurine or something for model railroads, but nobody is really pushing to have action figures done there. So yeah,
that's surprising, given that Modibot was operating out of there, basically at the core of its creation, right? Yeah,
and in fact, they still will print out a couple of those to show off their, what they can do.
Where does Modibot work out of now? It's not out of Shapeways. He's got his own thing going, or?
Well, I know he lives in Rhode Island. He has his own. Modibot has become a company.
Yeah, so he's probably got his own printers and studio and stuff.
Yeah, I know that he's got several of his own home printers for testing out that Modio stuff, as well as different things for Modibot. And other than consulting and working on like this project and this thing, I have no idea how he makes his money, to be honest.
Maybe donations and angel investors and stuff like that.
Oh, maybe. I mean, I'm sure he's very well connected in terms of the toy industry.
I hope Shapeways can, I don't know, I don't know if move forward's the right word for it, but it seems like they've still got the advantage, aside from name recognition, of, as far as I know, their process is the only one that can print interlink joints, if I recall correctly, outside of, like, industry-level printers.
Well, there's some others that can. Like, if you know what you're doing, you can do it with a home printer.
Oh.
Because I've seen demos done of where they'll print like a clockwork heart, that can then kind of rotate and the gears move around and that kind of thing. So you can do interlocked parts with home printers. But it's all in. You have to be very clever in how you set up your prints.
Yeah. It seemed to me like one of the big advantages just on a tech level at Shapeways is being able to say that they can, for instance, print an assembled Strand Beast. That's always been one of the ones that really amazed me when I first heard it.
Yeah, I don't think you'd be able to do that on a home printer yet. Well, I'd love to see somebody try.
Yeah.
Let's see. What I'm looking for right now is there's this one guy in Russia that I had linked to on my Facebook page, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, maybe last month or so. And the stuff, he has a home printer, an Ultimaker. But the stuff that he's doing is mind-blowing. I'm going to see if I can find a link for you guys. Let's see.
Is this the guy doing the alien stuff, or am I thinking of something else?
No, this guy's he's into mechs.
Okay.
And, all right, here we go. I'm going to use this into our chat. There's his some of his stuff.
That's nice.
Yeah. Like that one that he calls Mosquito. I don't know, a lot of his designs just scream Jaeger to me.
Yeah.
But these things are, I think they're somewhere around like 10 inches tall. They're like really articulated. They've got like articulated shoulders, elbows, hips, ankles, all kinds of stuff. Like this is the...
So what would those be printed with then?
He's printing them in ABS using an Ultimaker home printer.
Really?
Yeah. So somebody's figured out how to do it. And like I look at what like Mechanaut is doing, and then I see this guy, and it's like, damn. Okay, I need to get a home printer. I need to start figuring this out.
Yeah, Mechazone had just done. I'm going to see if I can find the link to Sharon here. They did it, he did a quick thing around Christmas time called Bagobots. Here's the link to the Store Envy page, and it took, I think, a week or two to print 30 of each of these little robots. They're about they're pretty short. They're like 2 or 3 inches tall. Mm-hmm. But they're all like at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, at least 9 components each, if not more, for the weapons. Mm-hmm. And like these are untreated plastic out of an Affinia, mm-hmm. But the feel of the untreated plastic is still really decent because it's been laid down, I think, so that the layer that's on the bed of the printer mm-hmm. Is set up in such a way that you don't really see a lot of the crosshatch mm-hmm. stuff. But sure. Yeah, like I think his printers are like $1,200, $1,500 printers,
mm-hmm.
And I mean something this size with the ball joints functioning the way they do. I was thinking that at this size these would be swivel at the waist figures, not ball right. joint shoulder hip figures.
And how well do the ball joints function?
Very tightly.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of his primary piece of articulation. I know that he was working on the ball joints for the 6-inch figures for a while before they ended up being mm-hmm. Sold, but it has a very, very tight feel with this geometry, and untreated the cross-hatching still adds enough friction that it all seems to work really nicely.
Mm-hmm.
the upside, from what I understand, is that once you've got a home printer that's also going to be your production printer, it's a lot easier to tweak joint tolerances because you can just sort of sit there and print peg and hole and ball socket joints just en masse with slightly different mathematics.
Just do a bunch of trial and error.
Yeah, you're not stuck waiting, basically doing trial and error, but having someone else print it and ship it to you.
Well, yeah, that's precisely why I got the iBox, for that exact reason, so that I can do test prints of things.
Yeah.
Without having to wait like 2 or 3 weeks for Shapeways to get around to sending it to me, or waiting to have to pay them however many dollars to print it out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just that the whole thing with the small number of projects I've looked into is really just time is the big hurdle still. For Shapeways, we'll print you a whole bunch of stuff, and they can print it in their method and get it to you without you having to sit there watching it happen. Home printers are more convenient, but they tend to operate really slowly. So you're stuck with your printer running, like, for a 6-inch figure, a 14-hour job. And if something goes wrong, you can print those parts again, but it seems very, very time devouring.
Definitely. Also, one thing I've noticed a lot is the home printers, they require you to be a techie. They aren't exactly plug and play. They require fiddling. They require babysitting. I guess much like in the early days of like the dot matrix printers or something, like even the 2D printers, in the when they were a new thing. You have to be quite the enthusiast, as you're trying to figure out how to use it, because they can be very fiddly.
I think David tweeted at some point, at least once or twice, that one of his Affinias, like, say the extruder gets cacked, and it's like, well, that's it. Like, gotta sit there, figure out what's wrong with it, maybe get spare parts sent in. But it's they still are not on that level of an inkjet where it's just like, oh, it's not working. I'll call someone to hit it with a hammer, it'll start working. Right.
I know a number of them do have customer service that you can call, but it's not like you're nowadays when you order a color laser printer or something, or even a jet bubble jet printer. You plug it in, you expect it to work, and it works, and you don't really even think about how it's doing what it's doing.
Yeah.
And we'll get there eventually, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, no. And it seems like that's also the danger of undertaking 3D printed toy making as say a primary source of income. Is it's all hinging on this one piece of technology, or however many copies of it you pick up. Because without the printer, you're stuck. Like, there's no way to realize any of your prototyping or any of your production stuff. Like, it's all through the one through point.
That's true.
The way I'm looking at it too, like with the future of 3D printing, it's kind of doing what like digital downloads did to the music industry almost. Like, it's a lot more open. It's all free if you want it. You know what I mean? Like, in the next 10, 20 years, you're going to be able to download a transformer and print it at home and pull it out rather than go to the store and buy one, right? So they got to really think. That's why I think Hasbro's kind of diving in and going after like Shapeways and stuff like that. They realize it's inevitable. They got to do something.
Yeah, I mean, that technology is going to be kicking around one way or another.
Yeah.
And there are people finding those 3 guys who run off of Affinias figured out how to deal with the cross-hatching problem. Is they're doing the sort of dangerous sounding acetone vapor treatment on the plastic after it's printed, which smooths it out. It's just that describing the process sounds like insane meth lab stuff, because you're getting out a hot plate, you're putting some drops of acetone in a beaker on a hot plate, heating it until it vaporizes, and then you're lowering parts into the vapor on an aluminum bed for a couple seconds and then pulling them out. The end result is gorgeous. It's just a shame that there's no safe sounding way to do it. It still exists mostly as maker stuff. It's like a thing you do in your garage.
It's like alchemy or something.
Yeah. The end result is it's fantastic. Like, someday I'd like to I'd like to see that attempted on Shapeways plastic. See if that can, because Shapeways, they don't have the cross-hatching problem, but they've got the grain problem.
Now, is that, Chris, is that on the Mechazone stuff you were talking about? Like, is that what they do? Like that link you have posted there?
That link is untreated stuff. I'll grab you a link. I took some photos of a treated piece. I just got to dig it up.
I don't know if the acetone vapor bath would work on White Strong Flexible. I do have a ton of that material that's just junk that I could try that out with, I suppose. Lots of prototypes that failed. But I don't know if it'll work. If I'm not a chemist, I don't know if acetone eats away nylon or not, because that's what this is made out of.
Here's a close-up photo of an acetone-treated piece.
Oh, yeah.
The one problem with the acetone thing is that it took long enough for people to figure out a more reliable way to do it to ABS. I'm not it might not do anything to nylon. It might just annihilate the nylon upon contact.
Wow.
Yeah, it looks good.
Like the silver's painted, but the red is those shoulder parts are really one of the important bits.
I imagine though, if you had like really, really fine detail, it would kind of wash it out a little bit, right?
Yeah, it mushes it. There's a few videos from the maker community of the acetone treatment on sculptures, and it generally softens detail overall.
Yeah.
Because it's very lightly melting and blending together those printed layers.
Does look nice.
There's someone on TFW, I think it's Ryoku, has been trying to figure out a dipping treatment for Shapeways stuff. I think he's been using floor polish as almost like a finishing material to smooth it out. I haven't given that a try myself, but I've been thinking of doing that.
That might be worth trying. I know I've used PLA, like basically white glue before to seal up my stuff.
Like watered down, brushed on, or?
I don't even water it down. I just paint it on as is and let it dry. In fact, like this dude here, I covered him in PLA first before painting him.
Oh, nice.
So
that seems to be on the toy collector end. That's the big problem with every 3D printing method right now, is they all leave a different signature finish. That like the average Joe public majority have trouble getting over.
Yes. Yeah, that's definitely a big part of it. You know, we want what looks like what we see on the shelves. You know, but we can't have it. Not yet.
But it could just be a matter of time too. Like if they get the resolution to like a microscopic almost point, kind of like 2D printers, right? Like there's the dot matrix printer and then the laser and inkjet and stuff like that. You can't even see the pixels really.
Very true.
Well, I think Fake Busker's also been doing some stuff with non-F, right? Because non-F's been doing like taking a 3D printed piece and making an injection mold out of it. Is it?
Kind of, yeah. He's been taking the 3D models, like Ariel Eminals, Fake Busker will send him the 3D models, and then he, I think, actually creates a negative of them and gets that 3D printed. But he'd be able to answer better than I could. I've been actually talking myself with him about creating some stuff, but apparently he doesn't like SketchUp files. So I have to figure out some other way to create files for him.
Now, Christian, do you exclusively use SketchUp, or do you have like your another high-end 3D program you use, or?
For the most part, it's all exclusively SketchUp. I am in the process of teaching myself how to use some higher-end ones, but I am very poor, so I stick with what I can get for free.
Yeah.
And like, I'm a Windows user, so I can't use Rhino unless I want to pay thousands of dollars for it. I'm not a student, so I can't get any student discounts. I know a lot of the guys on the boards use Rhino, and they're happy with it, but Rhino only gives you a free version if you have a Mac.
Gotcha. Yeah, I use Windows as well.
Yeah. Um, the company that makes Cube 3D Systems, they have a pretty good CAD package that's very similar to SolidWorks, which is like the industry leader. But they charge significantly less for it. And so I've been thinking about buying a license for that.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of free ones out there, but they all have their quirks. And so I've been trying a bunch of different ones, trying to find one that I like. And I ultimately ended up settling on SketchUp simply because I found that it had a very low learning curve to it. I found it very easy to get into and start making the kind of stuff that I wanted to make.
It reminds me a lot of when I picked up GIMP before I touched Photoshop. Like, GIMP is the, I don't know if it's the direct parallel, but it's kind of like the SketchUp to Photoshop, at least at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember trying GIMP a couple of years ago, well, maybe a couple of decades ago at this point, and not being very happy with it because I was used to Photoshop already.
Yeah, no, yeah. If you went Photoshop first, the GIMP is like this weird Frankenstein's monster.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, I love how Photoshop has the subscription thing. I think I pay like $9 a month, and I get it. It's beautiful.
Now, do you have the full Adobe Cloud subscription?
I have not a full. I just have. I think it came with Photoshop and Fireworks, and that's it. It's like $9.99 a month. But I mean, it's for Photoshop. It's not bad.
Not at all, no. Yeah, the company that I work for during the day actually supplied us with Adobe Cloud subscriptions.
Perfect.
So, yeah. So as long as I keep working there, I've got access to everything that I need, like be it Photoshop, Flash, Premiere, Sound Booth, whatever. So that's pretty awesome. I just have to manage to keep working there, I guess, to make use of it.
Yeah.
And then make friends with a student, get a student discount on something. And
Yeah, if only that I could somehow work my daughter's student,
You want to become a 3D modeler when you grow up.
Yeah, unfortunately, she's only in first grade right now, so I might have a hard time selling that to,
And she's so smart.
Yep. Actually, she's the one that you guys saw pick the name out of the hat.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Chris,
Yep.
where are you out of? You're Canadian too, right?
Yeah, I'm in Toronto right now.
Oh, cool. I work in Mississauga.
I'm out that way every now and then for TFCon.
Yeah. Are you going to Collectors Con?
I'd like to. I'm not sure if I can make it that weekend, but
Yeah.
I'm keeping the date in mind.
Yeah.
If I make it, I'll bring along a Mechazone thing, 'cause I like waving 3D printed stuff at people.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm probably going. That's I grabbed all the parts I need for before Toy Fair.
All right, guys, I think I'm probably going to call it, unless you had some other stuff you wanted to talk about. It's starting to get a little late.
Oh, the only other thing I've got is like, so how do I make a masterpiece toy in this thing?
That might be the advanced class.
All right. Previews.
All right. So, does anybody have any questions before I let you go about the homework for this week?
Is it due 5 minutes before the next class, or?
Yes.
All right.
You're not allowed to actually get started on it until 5 minutes before the next class.
Perfect.
So I operate.
My philosophy: do tomorrow, do tomorrow.
Yep. All right. Cool. All right. In that case, I will see you guys next week, and if you have any problems, trying to figure anything out, by all means, hit me up on the chats or over email or something, and I'll do my best to help you out.
Great.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Have a good night, everyone.
All right.
Good night.